Broadcasting from the greatest castle in the world, in the county of Lawrence, NCTV45.
Hello everybody, my name is Anthony Mastrangelo. I'm the mayor of the city of Newcastle. I'd like to talk to you about something about myself, some of the accomplishments I made over the last 11 years, and something about the Act 47. Let me start by giving you something about my background. Newcastle is my hometown. I was born and raised on the south side of Newcastle. I graduated from the Newcastle High School. I went to Youngstown State University for my bachelor's degree in business administration. Marketing, public relations, and accounting was my major studies. I also attended and graduated from Columbia University in New York City. I received a Master's of Science degree in hospital administration. I served in the U.S. Air Force Reserve for 6 years and was honorably discharged. As mayor, I'm also a member of some community service organizations, St. Vitus Parish, Newcastle Rotary Club 89, Lark Enterprise. I'm a board member on Lark Enterprise. I'm a member of the Masonic Lodge 243, Scottish Rite Mason, and I'm also Shriners, Caravan 15. I enjoy the Shriners because it deals with hospitals, and that's my background. I spent 35 years in healthcare, including 16 years as a chief executive of a couple hospitals. And what I'd like to do is share with you something about the Act 47. Now, Act 47, the city was designated a financially distressed community under Act 47 in 2007. And I ran for the first time and took office in 2008. And at the time, the city had virtually no money at all in the bank, maybe $300 or $400 in the bank, and I had a payroll of around $250 coming up. But I got through it. People owed us money. I had 4 misappropriations of funds in the finance department, Sylvan Heights, in the parking, and a misuse of a time card. But we got through it. Back then, in my 11 years there, I had no city reserve, no money in the bank, and today I have $2.6 million. Now this is very important because it's required to have X number of dollars in reserve. Rainy day fund is normally it's called. Another issue, long-term debt. I took over a city that was $75 million in debt. Now, in order to service that debt, it cost $7.9 million. From then, and that's 2008 until now, my debt now is $32 million, and I service that debt by $2.9 million. That's a $5 million turnaround, which goes back into the general fund. At the same time, for the first 5 years, we stabilized our finances. We have no new debt. I didn't borrow 1 penny in the 11 years I was as mayor. It wasn't necessary. We were able to put balanced budgets for the last 11 years. Our bond rating was basically junk bonds. Right now it's A- stable. And I proposed no city taxes in 2019. In addition to that, we invested some monies into the streets. Now the city is a large city. It has basically 100 street miles. When back in the 1950s, we had a population of maybe 57,000 people. Our population is down to like 23,232. So, but the infrastructure remains the same. We still have the streets that we have to pave. And so I invested $5.1 million to pave 135 streets in the city. Now that's only 24 street miles, so that's a 25% of all the streets in Newcastle. But we did the best we could under the circumstances without borrowing any money. Another issue that we addressed is blight. Here in the city, we spent $1.1 million to demolish 369 residential commercial buildings or structures. That's very important. Once you eliminate blight, then you start hopefully building. For instance, we're trying to develop the Lower East Side and the South Side of Newcastle. The Lower East Side, we focused our blight on Lower East Side. Dawn Services this past year are now building for the first time 8 new houses. That's, to me, is fantastic. We're getting someplace, growing. That's the thing. On the south side, we're working with 10,000 friends who applied for a grant with UPMC for monies for, it's called Gussie Walker program. They deal with kids after-school programs, and it's working out nicely. We just, a couple, 3 weeks ago, had another investment in the south side through a grant, and that's working out rather nicely. But down in the south side, we eliminated a number of houses. Actually, our blight is down to maybe 80-some structures. And this year alone, we'll be we'll be knocking down at least 50 of them. We also have a paving program. It hasn't started yet because the asphalt companies are not, actually they're closed, unfortunately. But they should be open shortly. We have $500,000 that will be paving a number of streets that we publicly acknowledge that they are streets that have to be taken care of. And lastly, on the paving, I know everyone talks about potholes. We've had a terrible winter, and the potholes are there, but last year I invested $63,000 to buy 2, it's called hot boxes. Each hot box is it holds 3 tons of asphalt, hot asphalt. Remember now, asphalt, the companies are closed, but we buy the asphalt from another company that will sell us the asphalt. And you keep it hot, and you do it in a more permanent way. I have 2 crews, one on each side of town. Last year we started with, this year actually, we started at the North Hill and we worked down. And we were on the east side and we work up on there too. Now they're down in Mahoney Town and just different areas, but they're constantly filling up all the potholes that we need to do. If you find that you need a pothole or an area that needs to be fixed, just give my office a call. My office number is 724-656-3510, and we'll take care of it. And lastly, let me talk about, very quickly, talk about the Act 47. In Act 47, we were given excuse me. The law has changed. When we went in 2007, Act 47 started in 1987. And you can say in forever. Some cities have stayed in since 87. They finally are out. About 4 or 5 years ago, they made a change in the law that we have to get out at a certain time. You're given 5 years. We are given December 31st, 2019 to get out of Act 47. Unfortunately, with all the activities that I just mentioned previously that we made, it really helps us, but we're not out. And one of the primary reasons why we're not out is that when you go into Act 47, how can I put it? Our revenue comes from property taxes, period. And that's where we make the money. But in Act 47, they also give you what's called earned income tax, which means you tax the residents and non-residents. We have a lot of people that work in Newcastle but live out in Shenango or some of the townships, and they're taxed 2.1%, and residents are taxed 2%. That tax generates $7 million. $7 million. If we want to get out today, we couldn't, because how can we cover that $7 million? That's the problem that we're having right now. But the plan that has been drawn up, and we were given, the state has given us a 3-year extension so that we can figure out how we can get out. Now, the plan is not final yet, but we know what it is. In fact, we're having a meeting next week with the Act 47 coordinators. When you're in Act 47, you have 2 coordinators, one in finance and one happens to be an attorney's group. So we have ways in which we can cover our expenses. We've got to reduce our debt. We've got to cover all our expenses on programs that are now in operation. For instance, the golf course. We're spending about $200,000, and we lost some money last year. I think it was $6,200. The refuge department. This is one where we have to address it now. We're losing about, I would say, like $50,000 or $60,000 a year. Now, it may be a little high or low, but it's in that range. So we have to figure out how can we cover that expenditure. And right now, we have a plan that we put together, and that plan we'll probably be talking about it at the next council meeting. Generally speaking, we have to grow. The city has to grow. For instance, what we lack right now in the city, senior citizens apartments. When someone wants to retire, they may live in a 2-story house or residence, but they want 1 story. There are very few 1-story, like a ranch. So that's one thing that we have to put together. We also have to address the first-time buyers, young people that modestly priced homes that they can afford. That's another issue that we have to address. I mentioned about the South Side. I mentioned about the Lower East Side, but we still have to work and try to take care of that. But we have other projects on the South Side. Would be the former St. Francis Hospital. That's vacant, and I've been told that someone bought it. We're not sure yet, but that'd be super for us, super for the city. Shenango, China. Let me tell you, I've been working with the owner for the last 11 years. Very difficult man to deal with, but he owes us money too. So we're hoping that we put our heads together in the possibility of us buying Shenango, China. Now, Shenango, China is in excellent position, location-wise. Has railroads, But we have to demolish the building as is now and see what hazardous waste that we have to deal with, and then we have to develop it shovel ready. That's one of the issues that we have to deal with. Now, this is a short list, but another issue that I always, when I go back home when I was a young kid on Mill Street, we used to have what is called a farmer's market. The farmer's market, when we take advantage of all the individuals who grow corn and all kind of vegetables, etc., they would bring it in on Monday night. Everyone would go up to the farmer's market. We have, in the last few years, we've developed what is farmer's market downtown, and we want to give it a more permanent place. It brings people downtown. But from my point of view, we need a farmer's market that you have free parking, no hassles about having to pay anything, free parking. And one of the really things that I feel that we're missing is a motel. I lived in half a dozen places. They all had motels. Newcastle, many years ago, had 26 motels, public hotels it's called, 26. We have 0. In other words, Newcastle is not a destination. I want to get a motel in town so we can have annual meetings, not we, but people can come to Newcastle, annual meetings. They can do tours, they can go to the Amish country. There's a lot to see in Newcastle, in the area that we are in. We need a staging area, and that would be something that we used to have. I remember many years ago we had a Best Western, I think it's called, and I lived out of town and visited my family and all that, and we stayed there. It was so convenient, right downtown, and I think that's what we need. There may be other things that we may need, but under the circumstances, I think that I give you enough information that I feel that we have a lot of work ahead of us. Which brings to the end is that I've been working for 11 years to get this city in the financial position that I feel it should be in. And remember, experience matters. I feel I have the credentials, I have the education, I have the experience, and I have the commitment to get Newcastle out of Act 47. I want to thank you. That's why I'm going to ask you to vote and support me for the May 21st primary. I truly would appreciate that. Thank you very much.